The day after the big Northern California earthquake, the San Francisco Bay Area. The digging out continues, and so does the counting of the dead.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening from San Francisco. This is the Marina District neighborhood. It was the hardest hit residential area in San Francisco. It is believed that between 3 and 5 people died in that apartment house right back there. Although I must tell you, most of the damage in San Francisco has been confined to this area, which is about 4 square miles altogether. I made a helicopter tour today of the entire Bay Area, and the greatest damage was right here on the Oakland Bay Bridge and, of course, on Interstate 880. Yet, more than 272 people are believed to have died. The death toll could go over 300 before we're all through. Damage, more than $1 billion. Yet tonight, some good news as well. San Francisco airports are open, although congestion, we're told, is very heavy. And in the city of San Francisco and in many of the outlying communities, service is being restored. They expect to have full power in San Francisco before the end of this day. It was a devastating earthquake nonetheless, 7.0 on the Richter scale. This is the full range of its effects. It reached all the way into Nevada, as far south as Southern California. The epicenter was in the Santa Cruz area. The San Francisco Bay Area, of course, with its larger concentration of people, suffered the most. And the single greatest hit occurred on the Oakland Bay Bridge in approach to Interstate 880. A long section of that collapsed during the peak of the rush hour, and several hundred people were probably killed. NBC's George Lewis is standing by there right now. George, I know that the rescue operations continue, and it is difficult to know just how many people were killed. What are they saying now about the estimated death toll?
Right now, Tom, they have 10 confirmed dead. This was not supposed to happen. California's bridges and freeway abutments are reinforced to make them earthquake resistant, but this time it failed. Perhaps as many as 150 to 250 cars and their occupants were crushed when the top deck of the freeway collapsed onto a lower deck. It happened at the worst possible time, evening rush hour. This morning, firemen hoisted their ladders up to the structure looking for victims. Paramedics with specially trained dogs searched for signs of life and found none. Jackhammers were called in to begin the task of breaking up the rubble. It will be some time before the exact death toll is known.
The number of missing persons at this time reported to Oakland is 86.
Dan Ruby waits by the freeway. His son, one of the missing.
And I've been here since 6 this morning because I couldn't sleep. So I figured rather than stay up and walk around like a zombie, I just come down here and see if I could do something.
Yesterday afternoon, just after the collapse, the scene was chaos. Bystanders rushed in to help rescue the victims, risking their own lives in the process.
I seen the freeway started dropping, like dominoes, I seen it just start dropping like layers, People were panicking.
When we first went in, was cars that were on fire and smoking, dust all over the place, and people saying, help me, help me.
People were dead all around you. It was just too traumatic and awesome of an experience to relate to anyone right now.
The collapsed freeway section is east of the San Francisco Bay Bridge, connecting the bridge to downtown Oakland. A section of the bridge itself caved in during the quake, tossing cars and people into the bay, crushing others. This home video shows what it was like atop the bridge as the quake hit. A moment of sheer terror. Authorities say it will be at least 3 weeks before the bridge reopens, completely disrupting life for thousands of Bay Area commuters. And late this afternoon, Transportation Secretary Samuel Skinner said it would probably be a year and a half before this section of freeway is reopened. Meanwhile, state officials have promised a thorough investigation of why it collapsed. Tom?
George, I think that there are, more than 300,000 people who commute from East Oakland into the San Francisco area every day. They're going to have some means of getting to work. Are there any alternative plans at this time?
They're talking about reinforcing BART, the Bay Area Rapid Transit System, the subway that goes under the bay. Apparently, it was not heavily damaged by the quake. They're hoping to lay on extra trains throughout the day and night. They're talking about going to a 24-hour schedule, but it's still going to mean a major disruption for the people who live here.
They're going to have the San Francisco equivalent of Dunkirk with a lot of boats, perhaps, as well.
Well, they've got ferry boats now lined up to take people back and forth across the bay, hearkening back to the days before the Bay Bridge and before the BART system.
All right, thank you very much, George Lewis, tonight. In Oakland, San Francisco, of course, is the heart of the Bay Area, and this is a city that was leveled by a great earthquake and fires in 1906. This time, it came through in much better condition, but this neighborhood, it's called the Marina District, was hard hit. It is built on a floodplain hard by the Golden Gate Bridge and the Presidio, for those of you who are familiar with the San Francisco area. And these are elegant homes, many of them built more than 60 years ago. We get a report tonight on what's been going on in San Francisco from NBC's Don Oliver.
Most of San Francisco remained undamaged after the quake, but power was still out in the downtown area today. Without signals, traffic was snarled. One area of the city was hit hard, the Marina, not far from the Golden Gate Bridge. Thousands of curious poured into the neighborhood to stare at the warped and twisted buildings. And watch firemen continue to pour water on the remains of an apartment building and 2 homes. Most of San Francisco, the hilly part, is built on solid rock. But this was once part of San Francisco Bay. It's all reclaimed land. The quake turned it into a bowl of jello, and 4-story buildings were shook to the ground. The fires were believed to have resulted from broken natural gas lines. During the night, rescue workers looked for survivors in the damaged buildings and guarded against looters. Today, Mayor Art Agnos said the citizens of San Francisco were well behaved.
Crime was way below average. The bookings were down, the arrests were down.
Today, the grim search for bodies began. They used chainsaws to attempt to clear away the debris, but finally gave up, saying the job was too dangerous. They know that the bodies of 2 people are in this building, but firemen are reluctant to go after them.
This was a 4-story building. There's only 2 stories above the ground now. How are you going to get at them? And we can't risk sending a crew in if this is going to topple over.
Vice President Quayle toured the area by helicopter and then surveyed the marina damage from the ground. He promised quick federal assistance. Residents were warned not to enter buildings in the marina until they are judged to be safe. Some took great chances anyway in order to salvage their belongings. Everyone is concerned about a big aftershock knocking damaged buildings to the ground.
Please use the sidewalk so we can get emergency vehicles into this area.
Despite the warnings, the crowds continued to pour into the marina to see for themselves what the second worst earthquake in the nation's history had done to the city by the bay. Don Oliver, NBC News, San Francisco.
Altogether, damage was scattered over a 100-mile area of the San Francisco Bay. Santa Cruz, which is right on the Pacific Ocean about 75 miles south of here near Monterey and Carmel, was the epicenter. And NBC's Roger O'Neill is there tonight.
The earthquake moved down Pacific Avenue in Santa Cruz with a vengeance. Most of the 60 stores in the 6-block-long Garden Mall were destroyed. 2 people were killed there.
We are in for a long-term rebuilding project in this community, both residentially and commercially. We need to hang together, and we're going to do that.
The oceanfront community may not get its electricity back for 3 days. The water supply is contaminated, and the sewers aren't working. Only a handful of stores were open today. Residents spent hours waiting in line to buy bottled water and bread. Only 1 customer at a time was served.
Fluid, hot dogs, Pepsi, 6-pack root beer, bread, chips.
Earthen dam reservoirs, though, in the mountains above the town held. It was the only good news Santa Cruz had.
I don't know if this isn't the big one. I don't know what would be left of this town if we got anything bigger than what we had.
The National Guard was activated to help police patrol the streets. County officials said damages here, where the earthquake started, would exceed $500 million. Roger O'Neill, NBC News, Santa Cruz.
California has 6 nuclear power plants altogether, none of them damaged by the earthquake. Rancho Seco, which is near Sacramento just north of here, and Diablo, just south of here, are open and doing business. The federal government is deeply involved in the emergency rescue operation going on here. President Bush has declared 7 counties in Northern California federal disaster areas. NBC's Robert Hager in Washington has been following that part of the story.
In Washington, an army of federal and private workers began organizing a huge relief effort. President Bush, who will visit the scene late this week, grabbed a phone himself at one point.
Yeah. is the president. How is it doing out there? Are you getting a lot of requests for emergency medical service?